What's up guys, it's Z here, welcome back to Yu-Gi-Oh! Deck of the Day. Today we're taking a look at Rose Dragon, a deck that has got a lot of good support recently, and Lightning Overdrive gave us even more cards to play with. There are still a couple cards missing with the deck, those being Rose Princess and White Rose Cloister, which we still don't know when we're gonna get, but hopefully soon, so we can put even more cards into the deck. And this deck is just a nostalgic deck, for all those 5Ds fans. Aki, we've been huge fans of Aki, basically she's by far the best female protagonist objectively. So yep, we all love this deck and we're trying to make it as competitive as possible. Unfortunately, it's just a worse version of Dragon Link if you want to compare it to something else, because it tries to do similar stuff but in a different way. And I just wanted to let you know right now that I am not including LP in this deck, and the reason being is because there's a really good chance in the next ban list LP is going to get banned. And when it comes to casual decks like this one, I wouldn't want to post a profile with a card that in 3 weeks might not even exist and completely changes how the deck plays, because yes, LP helps you main deck cards that you wouldn't normally play without LP because you wouldn't have easy access to them. So I decided to make the deck as realistic as possible. Maybe if LP somehow dodges another ban list, then yes, maybe I can profile this one more time with the strategies you would play with LP, but I hope and I believe that LP absolutely will get banned in the next list, so this is a no LP list. So before we get into the video, if you enjoyed, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and now let's get to the deck profile. So starting off with our monsters, we play 3 copies of White Rose Dragon. This is by far the best starter. There are 2 kinds of starters you can do with the deck, and it all plays around stuff like Hulk and also being able to go for your level 7 synchro plays. So when this card is normal summoned, you special summon a Rose Dragon from your hand or grave, and if you control a Dragon Tuner or a Plant Tuner, this card can be special summoned from the hand, and if this card is sent to the grave as synchro material, you send a level 4 higher plant monster from your deck to the grave. So the last effect before the new sets it was kind of irrelevant, because there was not something that you could send that was really good to the grave that you could be able to get access to. But now we have a new synchro monster that helps you get back the monster you sent. So you can send Mardel, which Mardel basically searches any of your plants. So all of the effects of White Rose Dragon are absolutely important right now, and you will be using all 3 of them in a lot of games. So this is why this card is absolutely a 3 of an insane card. 3 copies of Red Rose Dragon. I've seen a lot of people cut cards of this, but I think this is just because of LP, because they can get this from their deck with LP whenever they want. But if you don't play LP, then I suggest you max this out, because it's the reason you're playing some cards in the deck, because they are searchable through this card. So basically, if this card is sent as synchro material, special summon a Rose Dragon monster from your hand or deck, and before you would have to summon another copy of White Rose Dragon, because usually you synchro this with White Rose, and then you special summon another White Rose, but now there's a new card you can summon in a really good card, which I'll show you a little bit later. And also, if a synchro monster was a Black Rose Dragon or a Plant Synchro monster, you can add a Frozen Rose from your deck to your hand, which is what play 1 copy of, because it's searchable, so why not? So this is why I said that you need to max out on this card, because without LP you cannot get easy access to it. You need to hard draw it or use something like a Foolish Burial and bring it back with Pisty, which I am playing in the deck, because let's be honest, there's no way Pisty is going to get touched. So this is why Red Rose Dragon is not the best card if you see it by itself, but it's a combo piece that you need to see still in order to be able to do the most out of your plays. 3 copies of Rocks Rose Dragon. This card, what else is there to say about this card? This card searches you a monster reborn, and it's a dragon monster, and it's a tuner. So if it's summoned, and thankfully it's not just a normal summon, so you can summon it with Red Rose Dragon and get its effect, you can add a card that specifically lists Black Rose Dragon in its text, and there is a new card that's basically monster reborn. So this is why this card is so good. And if this card is in the grave, if you have a face-up Rose Dragon monster or a Plant Synchro monster destroyed by battle or card effect, you can add this card from your grave to your hand. So it recovers itself when your opponent tries to push through your board. So it's a decent card you can get for follow-up, and there is another card that you can get for follow-up as well. So you have a lot of cards that keep coming back from the grave on their own. So it's a really good engine that keeps you playing from your grave. Even if you don't top deck something good, you still have a lot of effects coming from the grave, so you can have something for a follow-up. Next we have 3 copies of Ruddy Rose Witch. Konami, why did you have to change the name for this card, the Rose Dragon? Blood Rose Witch and Blood Rose Dragon was so much cooler. But anyway, yeah, we're calling her Ruddy Rose Witch. So this card helps you get into your Witch of the Black Rose, which was considered a really bad card before this, but it being able to stack also your Rose Fairy to the top of your deck means that you always have at least a guaranteed level 7 synchro play or a Needle Fiber play, which this card is really good, because you tribute her, you search your Witch of the Black Rose, you put your Rose Fairy on the top of your deck, and you get the extra normal for your Witch of the Black Rose. And when Witch of the Black Rose is summoned, if you control no other cards, keep that in mind, because it's the play that you have to do first if you want to use her effect. You draw a card. If it's a monster, then that's fine. If it's not a monster, she blows herself up, but it's always going to be a monster because you stack it. and Rose Fairy is the one that's basically a Lilybell when you search it, when you draw it from your deck or search it. It special summons itself from the hand. So yeah, this card gives you a lot of options. She's a plant, which you can use Lawn Fire to summon her. She's a level 1, so you can use 1-for-1 to get to her. There are so many ways to get to this card early, and if you do this before you do your Rose Dragon plays, then you can do even more. So the deck has 2 patterns of plays, one being the Needle Fiber plays or the Dragon plays, which depends on what you have in your hand. So you can do Synchro plays, you can do Link plays. Most probably what you're aiming to do is summon a Crystal Wing, maybe Heavenly Spheres, and maybe even use Hulk during your opponent's turn with Garden Rose Flora and Garden Rose Maiden to go for a Satellite Warrior or a Ruddy Rose Dragon. Both of these plays are fine. So it's a mediocre mid-ranged combo deck, but it's a really fun deck to play, so this is why I think that a lot of people are still going to try it out, even though there are a lot better options if you want to play combo. 3 copies of Lawnfire Blossom, mainly using this to get to your Ruddy Rose Witch, but there are so many other targets you can go for if you already have access to her, maybe with a 1-for-1. 2 copies of Witch of the Black Rose, and 2 copies of Rose Fairy. You do play 2 of each, because if you draw the Rose Fairy, then your Witch of the Black Rose is very, very bad, and if you draw your Witch of the Black Rose, you cannot really do much, because you need to search your Witch of the Black Rose with your Ruddy Rose Witch in order to be able to stack, so you need to play 2 and 2. Unfortunately, I know these are kind of bricky, especially if you see them without the effect of your Ruddy Rose Witch, but still it's something that you need to play, and you do play a lot of monsters, so even if you just summon your Witch of the Black Rose, there's a lot of chances that you will draw a monster so you can get an even better card and then be able to do other plays, so it's not that bad having to play 2, but it's absolutely necessary. 1 copy of Mardel with 1 copy of Spore. These cards usually go together. They are now basically have become the best staples in plant decks, especially now, because like I said, you can bring back the Mardel after sending him to the grave with White Rose Dragon. She can search you the Spore, but usually you're going to do that if you have something like a discard outlet for Spore or anything else, or you can foolish the Spore, of course, to get it back from the grave, but you can search other cards like Rose Girl, or you can search whatever you want. She even searches you Lawnfire. I mean, what else to say about this card? She searches you any plant monster, and Spore is a card that gives you a follow-up. It gives you either a follow-up for the Hulk play, or it can become a variety of levels in the deck, so you can make even more Synchro plays, so you can do a lot of stuff with Spore. 3 copies of Dark Rose Fairy. Now we have the extenders of the deck, which is what the deck really needs, because if you don't max out on these cards, if your opponent stops the normal summon, there's sometimes this is going to beat for your turn. So you need stuff that special summon the from the hand in order to be able to do more plays. So if a tuner is special summoned, you special summon this card from your hand, and if it's in the grave, you can set a card from your hand or fill to the grave and place this card at the top of the deck or the bottom of the deck, depending on what you need. So this card is the main way you're going to be sending the Spore you searched from your Mardel to the graveyard, so you can use its effect, unless you haven't used your normal summon, but that's not going to happen most of the times. And she's also a level 2 non-tuner monster, so when combined with a level 3 tuner like your Crossroads Dragon, then you can go for your Garden Rose play, and when you get your Black Garden, this gives you another interruption, because when you use your Black Garden to bring back monsters, you have Garden Rose on the field. Usually you're going for a Hulk, and this will get you your Garden Rose Flora, and then you will be able to go for your Satellite Warrior to pop some cards, so this is another way to get to more interruptions on the field. And 3 copies of Rose Girl, so this is another similar card to Rose Fairy, so if a plant monster you control is sent to the grave, you special summon this card from your hand, so even if you just tribute a Lawnfire for its effect, that's fair play, you can special summon her. She's a level 3 tuner that goes for a lot of plays, because sometimes when you go for your Garden Rose Maiden, then you do have another level 3 tuner you can go for, and I do play another card in the extra deck that helps you being able to use those level 3 tuners more efficiently, because going for a level 5 is okay, but going for a level 6 sometimes might be even better, because the level 5 play on its own doesn't get you anything, you still need a little bit of follow-up, but the level 6 play will get you to at least 1 interruption, so that's decent. And also this card, if a plant monster on the field is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand. So yeah, if you just have a plant, you add this back from the grave. You can only use 1 of those effects per turn, so it's not like you can special summon her and then add her back immediately, but you will have a plant during the following turn on the field, so you can get her back. So this also recycles itself, so you can get even more cards back from the grave. For the spells, we have 3 copies of Basil Rose Shoot. This card is absolutely broken, so it's not just a monster reborn, it's also special summons from the hand. So even if your opponent, like for example Veilers your White Rose Dragon, you can use this card to special summon the monster you would be summoning with White Rose Dragon anyway, and it's also a quick play, so it can help you maybe survive a push if your opponent tries to OTK you under your board. So yeah, this card is searchable through Roxrose, and it gives you so much. And yeah, I mean, what else to say about this card? It's really, really good. I mean, you have to max it out 100%. 1 copy of Frozen Rose. The only reason you play this is because it's searchable, but its effect is not that bad. So basically what it does is you tribute a monster, and if you tributed a plant monster, during the end phase you're going to draw 2 cards and discard 1, or if you tributed a non-plant monster, you add a level 4 lower plant from your deck to your hand. Usually what you're going to be tributing with this is your Pisty, if you cannot go into Heavenly Spheres, or if you have enough monsters to go into Heavenly Spheres without Pisty, because if if you tribute a plant monster, it doesn't give you much because I don't play hand drops in the deck. I think you can't afford to main deck hand drops in a deck like this because it's already bricky enough, so you need to at least make it consistent so you can be able to play. This is not a competitive deck whatsoever. It's just a casual, more fun deck, so trying to main deck hand drops will be very optimistic in my opinion. So being able to draw 2, discard 1, the best it gives you is a follow-up play for the next turn. But being able to search a plant gives you a follow-up for the turn that you activate this, so I think this is a much better effect to use. It's also a quick play, so it can help you dodge some effects. So if your opponent tries to Veil or Imperm something, you can chain this and then dodge the effect, and the effect will still go through, which is something, but I still don't think it's worth playing more than 1 just because there isn't that interaction. I mean, just 1 is perfectly fine because it's searchable. 1 copy of Black Garden, you get this with your Garden Rose Maiden. Black Garden is not an FTK tool in this deck, it's an extender because when you blow this card up, you blow up the plants on the field and then you special summon a plant from the grave that has combined attack equal to the combined attack of all the monsters you blew up. Usually you're going to be blowing up just 1 token, you're going to summon something, your opponent is going to get 1 token, you will not have any plants on the field when you use this, you're just going to blow up this token, and you're going to special summon your Rose Girl back from the grave because she has 800 attack. So this is usually the play you're going to be going to. 3 copies of World Legacy Guard Dragon. This is a dragon deck, so the more dragons you can get on the field, the better, because Heavenly Spheres is just an insane card because it gives you follow-up and it gives you an interruption, so I think you need to be able to max out on this because worst case scenario, you just normal summon a Red Rose Dragon, you link it away for a Striker Dragon, you bring it back with World Legacy Guard Dragon, and then you go into a Heavenly Sphere, so that at least that's an interruption on the field. So you need to be able to capitalize on those small types of effects that you can use in order to make the most value out of your deck, because you're not going to have the God Hand every single time, because like, let's be real, the deck does play a lot of bricks and a lot of cards that you don't really want to see in combination with other cards, so at least you have to make sure that you have some kind of interruption with the worst hands possible. And for the one-offs, play 1 copy of 1 for 1, get into your Spore, get into your Radrose Witch, 1 copy of Foolish Burial. This card will send you usually the dragons that you want to be bringing back with your Pisty, but you can also send stuff like Spore in order to get more effects on the field. 1 Monster Reborn, of course, 1 Call by the Grave because you need to play around hand traps, because this deck doesn't play around hand traps too well. You can lose to an Ash on your Radrose Witch because you've used your normal summon, and if you don't have something like your Rose Shoot to extend, then you won't be able to do much. And the only trap I play in the deck is 1 copy of Blessed Winds, because I do play Marjoram in the extra deck. This is the level 6 play I was talking about. Marjoram gives you another interruption. It's similar to the Heavenly Spheres play that I mentioned. You need to make sure that you have some kind of interaction during your opponent's turn. At least do 1 play if your opponent tries to stop you, so either Heavenly Spheres or going for a Marjoram. This is why I said that Rose Girl is really, really good, because you can use maybe a Lone Fire Blossom and a Rose Girl to go for Marjoram to search this. And this card, all it does is give you life points, but this is the point. Marjoram, when you gain life points, is a Trident, so this is what you're trying to aim for this card. Now for the extra deck, we have 1 copy of Black Rose Dragon. If there's anyone playing a Black Rose deck without Black Rose Dragon in the extra deck, then I don't know what you're doing. I mean, come on, you need to play at least 1 copy of this card. It's such an iconic card, such a nostalgic card. There's no way I would not play this, and it's not a bad card, to be honest. I mean, you don't really need it, but it's a good card in some scenarios, because you can actually chain block it in order to forgo a second to blow up your opponent's board, so it has decent uses. 1 copy of Moonlight. I mean, Moonlight Rose Dragon is a fantastic card. It gives you more interruptions, and you can basically get both of these with the 1 copy of Ruddy Rose Dragon here. So Ruddy Rose Dragon, if it's Synchro Summon, you banish all cards from the graveyards, and if it was Synchro Summon using a Black Rose or a plant Synchro monster, you can destroy all other cards on the field. This effect will come up going second. You can technically use this during your opponent's turn, but you will only go for this play as a level 10 Synchro option only if you don't have anything else on the field, because if you have other stuff, you'd much rather summon a Satellite Warrior because it's not going to blow up your own field, but still it's a decent card. And it also has an effect that's similar to Stardust, so if an effect would activate that would destroy a card, you can tribute this card, you negate the activation, and you special summon a Black Rose Dragon from your extra deck or your graveyard, so there's no reason to play more than 1 copies, because even if you use them to Synchro Summon into this, you can get them back from the grave. But still, a really good card, a really good going second card. The Rose Dragons are basically better going second, and you do play other cards that will help you mitigate the metagame when you're going first, because the more interruptions you make, the best, because the best field you can possibly make with this board, with this deck, is basically Heavenly Spheres, a Marjoram, a Crystal Wing, and a Needle Fiber with a Garden Rose Maiden, but you would need the absolute nuts in order to get all of these on the field, so you try to make at least some of those. We play 1 copy of Garden Rose Maiden and 1 copy of Garden Rose Flora. Garden Rose Maiden searches you your Black Garden, and she also has an effect that you can banish her from the grave to target a Rose Dragon or a Dragon Synchro in your grave to special summon it, so that comes up a lot. And also your Garden Rose Flora is the tuner monster you're going to be summoning with your Needle Fiber, so you can go into your Satellite Warrior. 1 copy of Marjoram to search your Blessed Winds. The monster that makes a lot of these combos possible is this card, 1 copy of Empress of Blossom. So this card is a level 7 Synchro monster, generic, so it's a plant. You can use your Red Rose Dragon and your White Rose Dragon's effect when you Synchro Summon this. and it special summons a level 5 or higher plant monster from your hand or grave. So even if you draw your Mardil, you can still summon her with this. It's not like you absolutely have to send her to the grave with White Rose effect and then you can get her. Even if you draw her, this special summons her from her hand anyway, so you can get even more stuff. So this is a much better monster to summon early. I was considering playing Dragster too, but I found myself that in any scenario I would summon this over Dragster. So because this card would just make more plays available, Dragster would just be if you were using Ruddy Rose Witch with Witch of the Black Rose and Rose Fairy combo to just go for a Dragster and pass, but yeah, that's not very optimal, especially if we're talking about a spell and trap negate, which is Dragster, which is not the most optimal interruption anyway. So this card is just a much better extender and gives you more plays. One copy of Crystal Wing. You can play Savage instead, but I feel like you have to cover the most scenarios possible, and there are a lot of scenarios where you're not going to be able to send a Link monster in the grave early, so Crystal Wing just makes sure that you will have interruption even if you can't send a Link monster in the grave. One copy of Satellite Warrior. Like I said, this card is much better than Ruddy Rose when your opponent tries to play through multiple stuff. If you have only one play, then yes, Ruddy Rose is better, but if you have stuff like Crystal Wing or Heavenly Spheres on the field, then making this is absolutely the best option. For the Links, we play one copy of Striker Dragon. The only reason this is here is because of the mediocre play I mentioned with the World Legacy Guard Dragon or a Monster Reborn, same thing. So I'm just trying to make the most out of the bad hands so I can go for Heavenly Spheres, so that's why it's here. One copy of Pisty. I mean, yeah, we're not playing LP, but we are going to play Pisty because this gives you more stuff for Heavenly Spheres and a Monster Back to the Grave, so it's a really good card. One copy of Heavenly Spheres. Yeah, this card's an interruption and it gives you a follow-up in any dragon deck, so yeah, we're going to play it. One copy of Crossroads Dragon. This card actually has two purposes, has two uses in the deck. So first of all, it helps you fix the markers for Pisty, because usually you're going to be summoning your Pisty under your Needle Fiber, and then you're going to use your Needle Fiber and something else to summon Crossroads Dragon so Pisty can resolve, because you wouldn't have an LP in order to go for LP Pisty to have both the markers pointing at the same zone. And also the effect to special summon a Rose Dragon during your opponent's turn actually comes up a lot by triggering it in a Synchro Plant monster, so you're going to be using this effect a lot. If you don't link this away for Heavenly Spheres, depending on what your opponent is playing, depending on what your hand is, you're going to use both effects a lot of the times. One copy of Needle Fiber. Of course, we're playing a lot of tuners. We need to get Needle Fiber, and special summoning your Gardener's Flora means that you can go for even better plays, and being able to go for even more stuff with Needle Fiber. And yeah, when you go for Gardener's Maiden and Gardener's Flora, and then you can have a lot of monsters on the field, and then you can go for Satellite Warrior. You can play stuff for Needle Fiber if you want, in order to make the second effect even more useful, but I don't think it's necessary, because yes, you can play stuff like Desert Locusts, or maybe even Formula Synchron if you think you're going to have a Crystal Wing on the field and go for Satellite Warrior, but I don't think the deck has enough space in the extra deck in order to incorporate all that stuff. You would have to start cutting maybe some Link monsters, maybe cutting your Striker Dragon or the next monster I'm going to show you, which actually does come up a lot, to be honest, because there are a lot of hands that maybe you can make this monster instead. So I think Needle Fiber gives you a lot of options that you can play around with. If you think Gardener's Flora isn't that good, then you can swap it with the TG Wonder Magician, which is basically the same thing because it's a level 5. This is what you're aiming for, so you can pop a back row as well, but still Needle Fiber, an insane card. And one copy of Appaloosa. I do like Appaloosa in the deck. I know that you might think that she doesn't come up too often, and yeah, she doesn't come up too often, but she does come up enough to be able to play in the extra deck, because when you're playing through a board and you're trying to break it, if you break it, the monsters you're going to have on the field are going to be subpar, so unless you go into Heavenly Spheres, which Heavenly Spheres is a decent card, but on its own, it's not much. So if I had to choose between like an Appaloosa with 3 materials or just the Heavenly Spheres, then of course I would go for the Appaloosa. So usually this card is the monster you're going to be summoning after you've tried to break your opponent's board, and this deck can actually break boards with stuff like chaining, blocking your Black Rose Dragon, and then going to your Ruddy Rose Dragon as well. So after you've tried to break your opponent's board, and if you don't manage to OTK, which it's not going to happen too often, then you link everything away for an Appaloosa. You do have cards coming back from the grave, so you can get stuff like during your opponent's turn and try to make sure that your opponent doesn't build a board again, and this is what the purpose of Appaloosa is for the extra deck. So yep, that's it guys. Rose Dragons, I mean, it's just a fun deck to play. I know it's not the best deck unfortunately, but still it's a deck that's really fun, it's really decent. If you try to learn the combos, you can do some insane stuff, to be honest. And if we get White Rose Cloister and Rose Princess, it's going to be even better, because right now the problem of the deck is that it doesn't have too many ways to extend from the hand, because you have to rely on the card's own effects. But White Rose Cloister is basically a Valhalla for plants, so you can get even more stuff out of your hand. If you have multiple copies of Lonefires, or if you have multiple copies of your Ruddy Rose Witches, you can do more stuff. So yeah, we're waiting for this card. Hopefully we'll get it soon, and we're going to make the deck even better. So yep, that's the deck guys. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our upcoming content, and we'll see you next time.